Hello and welcome back to the Patient First Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin, where, of course, we are looking to increase the influence of today's engaged dentists. And today we have a fantastic guest, really somebody who I think shares the goal of increasing the influence of engaged dentists and elevating the industry, which I'm excited about. We have John Stamper, who's CEO of JRS4 Media, now in his 18th year in the dental industry. John's unconventional journey has helped him shape and create a complete 360-degree perspective on dentistry. He's founded and operates two companies, CE Exchange, a continuing education consulting company, and like I mentioned before, operates and is CEO of JRS4 Media, a digital media company. John, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Bryan, thank you. It's obviously been a pleasure learning more about the great work that you're doing and always fun to come on and talk. So thank you.
Well, I think we share kind of I call it a pathology, but I don't want to put this on you, of loving to do multiple things in the industry that we love, which is dentistry, right? And what's kind of fun is that we've mainly focused on education and innovation, standardization, and you're on the CE side and media, which is complementary, but very different. So for our audience, how did you get to where you are today? Because you have a great background, but I'd love to have our audience hear it from your mouth, not mine.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started. I think all of us, I mean, of course, I know for the dentists watching out there, for many of them, like when they think of first dentistry is either in their family or dental school or what have you. My journey started with a company called Brasseler USA, which many may be familiar with. And I came into the industry, had never been in dental before, and was tasked with selling handpieces. So I covered all of California, got the opportunity to work in tons of dental practices. And as you know, Bryan, at that time, there was a lot of key clinicians out there in California, the likes of Dr. Frank Spear and Dr. Winter. This was early in my days of dentistry and being able to go to a lot of their meetings. And I just got immersed in it and I loved it. I spent about 8 years at Brasseler, regional manager, worked on the inside and what have you. And then the other side of the desk analogy is I spent time at Mortensen here in Louisville, Kentucky, where I live now at DSO, working as a coach, working with a lot of their dental practices. It was kind of interesting at that time. Dr. Wayne Mortensen was looking to have somebody, I guess, outside of the dental practice, maybe who was in dentistry, but that could maybe offer a different insight to the practices. So that was a lot of fun. Got to work with a lot of the dentists and hygienists and office managers and see all of the things that they do on a daily basis from the other side of the desk. 2014 is when the entrepreneurial bug hit. And it's funny that you mentioned about CE. I was thinking about this driving on the way to work today, is that my whole journey and really why I'm here right now on the CE side is because I was in a dental practice and two of the hygienists were audited and they didn't have their certificates and they were fined and they were frustrated. And I remember sitting in the operatory thinking to myself, there's got to be an easier way to do this, right? Like this is 2014. So technology was getting there. And that was kind of the beginning of wanting to provide solutions for the dental industry. And so I started a company there. And then 2019 is when I got into the media piece, podcasting, doing things at live shows, showcasing a lot of the amazing people in dentistry and kind of tying all together. And then, of course, here we are today.
Really interesting journey because you've hit on so many different aspects of areas that support the dental industry, which is great. I was going to resist saying, but I got to say that you cut your teeth in the dental industry selling handpieces, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you've probably heard that joke before, but to me, I think I can't resist, right? I just can't resist. Even as a dentist, I can't resist. But you and I got connected recently because we're both passionate about dental CE and education in dentistry. And I feel like that's an area where there's some opportunities to do things maybe in a better way. And I love what you're doing with ACE. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think dentists are a little bit aware of obviously everybody's aware of the CE and problem that you mentioned, keeping track of your CE.
Yes.
In 2014, there was plenty of technology to keep track of CE versus saying, oh yeah, when we audit you, we what a backwards way of doing it, right?
Right.
In 2014, fast forward today, there's better ways, but they're not, ubiquitously implemented, right? But I don't think that most dentists understand kind of the stamp of the CE approval and how that process works and kind of what you're doing. So I'd love to hear you explain that to our audience?
Yeah, I think, you and I were talking about this. I think, continuing education has been one of those things. I've always looked at it in two buckets. There's what are my basic requirements, right, as a dentist, hygienist, dental assistant? And then for so many out there, it's they can't get enough, right? They want to continue to learn, they want to advance themselves. And I do remember spending time when I was, working with a lot of these dental practices and looking at the P&L of the practices that were very successful. And there was a straight correlation, right, between those that took a lot of continuing education or tried to learning as much as they could and the results of their practice. And that was always very, very interesting to me. But I do think that there's been a little bit of this misnomer, at least around accreditation, for many, many years. And what is the dental board's involvement, the ADA, AGD, and all of that? Not to mention this somewhat of an explosion, especially the last 3 to 5 years, of a lot of individuals with content expertise wanting to provide continuing education. And so one of my goals, I actually was fortunate enough. I spent some time working with the Kentucky Dental Board when I first started my company in 2014, and I learned the insides and outs of like what do the dental boards look like, and had conversations with dentists, and many of them would know where to find their requirements, many of them would not, and so there was always this, I guess, unknown in regards, even though everybody knew they needed to take continuing education, but built a really exciting relationship with the American Association of Dental Boards and a doctor by the name of Dr. Robert Zena, who I've come to have a lot of respect for here in Louisville, Kentucky. And the whole idea is that, is there a way moving forward to be able to accredit CE and bring the dental boards closer to what's really going on in the industry, so it doesn't seem like there's such a gap between maybe some of the newer courses that dentists need in order to continue their growth. And the dental boards recognizing that, as you and I talked, Brian, right? I mean, in some regards, a lot of the states are on top of that. And in others, it's difficult for them to stay on top of all the education that's out there. And so that was really, I guess, the basis of wanting to kind of start, what I began with.
Well, and I thank you for that explanation. I'll tell you kind of from my perspective as one of those people that's talking into a microphone and looking to give CE credits through Upgrade Dental, where we're doing a lot of education now, because I think that I view that as a positive thing. I think there needs to be more direct voices from dentist to dentist, or hygienist to dentist, or whatever it is in the industry, because this sort of like having these gatekeepers on the knowledge base doesn't help the cause in my mind. And Friday I did a keynote lecture at the University of Minnesota Dental School for dentists. And it was crazy in my mind, not from them, but the CE accreditation organization, the ADA, right, had just done an audit on them. And so in my lecture, I didn't say any products names at all. It was on emerging technology. So I just would say things like artificial intelligence and how that's being applied in dentistry, CAD CAM, CBCT, text payments, all the stuff that's going on in dentistry today. And they asked about handouts. And so I wanted to give people a copy of my book, right? And so we created a free page for people to just download the book for free, right? And on that page, we said, if you want a physical copy, you just pay for shipping here. And they came back and they said, we absolutely can't do that because you're trying to sell books. That's not a problem. In and of itself, that's not a problem. The problem is, in my mind, the disparity between that experience, and then if I go to a meeting where that same organization is trying to sell me a Mercedes-Benz and life insurance and something else, right? Which I'm kind of directly saying what I think the problem is, right? And they're the gatekeepers to who's ultimately responsible for our licenses, which is the boards, yes. Right? Which is why I really love what you're doing, is you're going directly and getting CE from the source. And I don't think there's this other interests that get involved, right? Yeah. The people giving out CE certifications should not make tons of money from selling CE, period. Right. That's how I feel about it. Right. I don't know. Right. Is that directionally kind of how, I say things maybe a little more bluntly, but I don't know.
No, well, I think this is, it's a real conversation, and one that you and I were talking about it. And I'm going to go kind of down the same path along the lines of companies providing continuing education and what I have learned. And I'm going to take it all the way back to the boards in the sense of what they're ultimately responsible for, which is protecting the public, right? And as you said, dentist, hygienist, dental assistant, when they go to renew their license in order to be able to continue to practice, it's done through the dental board, who in return is obviously responsible for protecting the public. So here's a scenario, right? So a dental board has a complaint from a patient in a particular city. They find out that that patient maybe had an issue with a root canal file or who knows, right? And they do the investigation. And when they find out that that particular office maybe started using this new product, this new endodontic file, and maybe wasn't properly trained, right? They were not properly trained. And what we have is we have a patient that has that was harmed, and and could have been very harmed. And so when you trace back to that, the real question is that why would there not be an opportunity for companies to be able to provide this continuing education in a sense so that the practices understand a lot of these newer technologies? Because Bryan, as you know, I mean, it is not a bad thing for all these newer technologies to be a part of dentistry. I mean, what I have learned over the years from the dentists that I've worked with is materials dictate technique. I mean, it's just, that's the way that it's always been. And so products and services have always been such a big part of dentistry and the growth of a professional. So why should that not, count? I mean, it's just always the way that I've looked at it. I think that's one of the things that we've addressed is that, making sure that we get the information on the front end when a course is accredited, that if a company is giving it, just vet the person that's giving the course and their experience. And if the attendee is going to walk away and feel more comfortable about doing that technique, I mean, here's what I'll ask you, Bryan. You've sat in hundreds of CEs as a dentist. If a company gets up there and they talk about selling a book or their product, ultimately, aren't you the one that's going to decide as the dentist if you're going to buy it or not? Like, has anybody ever forced you into buying their stuff? Right? I mean,
well, I'm gonna go a step further. If they have a sales presentation, regardless of if they're giving CE or not, I'm not buying their thing, right? Because I'm not interested in what they want to sell. I'm interested in how it affects my team, how it affects my practice, how it affects my patients, and if they can educate me and to put another sort of dentist perspective on it, my biggest barrier in all of this, and we as an industry, is the implementation piece, and the people that are invested interest in having us be successful are the people that create these products. I just had on this podcast a chemist from Vista Apex, because that person spends his life devoted to looking at that, like that he should have a direct line to the dentist, because today it's the line is a pictogram like of how long to scrub for, that the dentist probably doesn't look at, right? So and that's not nobody's fault there, but having the manufacturer who's testing, creating these products, they have the most knowledge, right? Typically speaking, and having them be able to impart that knowledge on the industry is incredibly important. It's not damaging. And frankly, I mean, I can see how you don't want to give out CE certification for something that's a pure sales thing.
Right.
But oftentimes some of the, I've been to thousands of hours of CE, right? And I can't even think back and go which ones were sponsored by a vendor or which ones weren't, right? Because I've gotten value from both and I've had both suck, right? And so and nobody is going to these meetings to be sold something. Like that's not a problem, right? So and now I think we're like talking about one specific aspect of this, but I think ultimately, like, the reason why this happens, I believe, is because the people that are in charges of the license aren't directly overseeing the CE, right?
That's correct.
And in the case with the ACE accreditation, they are. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up. I think one side of this, I mean, the main program is focused on accreditation, which is core. You mentioned the gentleman that's the chemist. I mean, in all regards, that should be the individual that actually is the course creator, right? They're the one that has the true education on that product, that material, or what have you. But then when it comes to the board involvement, at least with ACE, all of the dental certificates that are sent out to all of the dentists and hygienists and the like, or what have you, are then going into a master database of which every dental board in the country has access to their state. So the whole idea is the state of Michigan Dental Board to log in as time goes on and not only see the providers in their state that have taken ACE accredited courses, but more than that, what type of courses are they taking? What percentage are live? What percentage are online? What percentage are on demand? What percentage are clinical? Things like that, in hopes of starting to provide that information to dental boards so that when they're making policy changes and recommendations to state requirements, they have real life data, like you said, of what's actually going on in the market. And so when you talk about a course where maybe everybody's being sold to, you know how it works in the marketplace. That's only going to fly for so long before one person's going to attend. Once the word gets out amongst the dentist community, nobody's going to attend. And so, and so that's kind of the whole idea, is that if we're really going to bring the boards into this, let's provide them the information of what's being given out there. They're ultimately going to make the decision, but this is how we feel we can bring it closer. So
Yeah, I think it's great. I frankly, I think the more CE opportunities there with more bodies that are doing
yeah,
accreditation
yep,
and doing CE, I think the better. Because like you said, the marketplace is going to ultimately decide, right?
absolutely.
Which I think helps everybody. Let me ask you this. What aspects of the CE industry, the continuing education industry and dentistry, do you see are bottlenecks that need to be opened up? Because we're in a period of time
Mhm.
coming out of the pandemic where there's massive change. Like I see, we've launched virtual events with Upgrade Day. I think strongly that there's going to be a massive shift towards people getting educated virtually, because a lot of the younger dentists today don't want to go to go travel for 3 days to get a few CE credits and be accosted by a bunch of trade show people, right?
Yes.
Including myself, probably. No, I'm just kidding. So I mean, I think it's changing. I think that if I'm going to go to a trade show for 3 days as a dentist, I'm probably going to want to have a good experience. It's going to
Yeah.
be things like, there's events like, there's a CE event that just had Gwen Stefani. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that might
Right.
make me get there, right? But
Right.
but
Right.
but and then I can take some CE credits. But to fly out and go through the sea of trade show floor and then go learn, I think COVID, as it was for a lot of things, was an accelerant, and it took something that was doomed to die and it put a few nails in that coffin,
Yes.
right? To say it bluntly. And I think there's a massive shift that fill that void with online CE. We're stepping up at Upgrade to do sort of the practice growth side of that. First, do you agree with that sort of thesis? And second, what problems and opportunities does that type of a world have for dental CE?
I do agree. And I think that before the pandemic, I was attending a lot of meetings. My media company, Dentalcast Productions, we were going there. We were showcasing a lot of the things that were going on at meetings. One of the things that you said that I think I'm seeing happening is this whole confliction from a dentist to be at a meeting and, okay, I'm going to get my CE, but then I do want to kind of look at products. And I see a time, this is just a crazy premonition, that there's going to be events like that are just continuing education and events that are just for products and services. You think about it, Brian, a lot of other industries do that, right? For a lot of other technology industries, people go to trade shows just to look at a lot of the new upcoming products. And they're not there for two reasons, which I think has always been that dichotomy of where do I go? Where do I spend my time? The frustration with the vendors, and CE always, because it's needed for the professionals, usually wins out, right? So I think that we're going to see that shift. But I do think the online world is here to stay. Even I had heard that kind of in the middle of the pandemic, I forget what state it was, maybe it was Connecticut, had recognized that for that whole first year where they might have had an in-person live CE requirement, they voided it, right? They said, okay, we recognize that for this year, you can only get all your stuff on demand. And so that was the beginning of all of that. I love what you guys are doing, because I think that what we're going to see is you have a lot of people that will say they're going to pick and choose the in-person ones they want to go to, hands-ons that you have to be there, see your colleagues. But I do also feel like, this shift towards being able to take good quality content on your own schedule is awesome. And I think what we're going to see and what the pandemic forced is that in the beginning, maybe the quality of that wasn't as good. Now people realize that if that is a marketplace to do it, I want to make sure my audio's good, my video's good. Like, your studio looks great, by the way, right? So if you can imagine a time when people were trying to figure all that stuff out, I think that falls right in line with people being able to take good quality education on demand. And as you know, that only accelerates their learning. So if I was somebody that maybe I can only get around to 30, 35 hours a year, now I can take that plus another 30 or 40 or 50 of good stuff. Can't help but think that's going to make better professionals.
Well, thank you. So first of all, I totally agree. And then I have to say thank you because this is a brand new microphone that I spent about an hour calibrating today. So hopefully the sound doesn't suck, because it has for the last few episodes. There's been a lot of YouTube video watching that has gone into making this studio. And as early as an hour ago, I was testing the audio to see if I finally fixed the crackling sound. And yes. I think we have. So that's good. You're right. So as early as an hour in this studio, I was working on that.
And that's one of the bottlenecks. And I forgot to answer that. You asked me that. That is one of the bottlenecks, is that to get to this new world, those individuals who have the expertise and can present it, there's this barrier now, right? Like, how do I look? How do I sound? How do I do all this? What's the technical aspects of it? And so, although I think a lot of people would want to listen to the content, and ultimately they do, those are one of the things that I foresee people having to figure out how to do moving forward. So sorry, I wanted to answer your question.
Appreciate that. And I mean, it's at the same time much easier and more difficult than I would, it's like getting it going is easier. Getting it where you want it to be is much harder, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then based on what you said, because it fits right. I mean, it's almost like you teed up upgrade day 3 for me, because so now I want to selfishly ask you a question, because I agree with you, this sort of tension between having courses with CE and then having courses without CE. And upgrade, we start off not doing CE because I didn't want to have to deal with this whole mess that you're helping fix, frankly, yes. Right? But then people wanted the CE credit, so we got accredited, and we give out CE credits for much of our content now, but not all, to your point. And at upgrade day 3, which is January 21st of next year, which I'm super excited about, we had over 1,500 dentists go through the last one. We actually, for the first time, are having courses that are CE and non-CE. We're calling the non-CE ones the technology section, which basically then we don't have to, we're telling vendors, like, then we don't have to worry about that piece. If you want, and you can do, obviously some might have both. They might have an educational piece talking about artificial intelligence x-rays, like that's one of the products. And then if you want to learn about that specific product, here it is over here. Right. Not a sales pitch, but we can talk about a product, we can do a demo and not have to worry about it like infecting this pool that has been problematic, that you're helping to clean up that pool. So thanks.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting, because I think that, when I think about continuing education, I think about the fact that I'm not, and totally okay to admit, a very technical person. And so I was using my blower like a month back, and I did something to it, right? And so, but in that new world, I went on YouTube and I was able to learn how to fix it. And I guess the point that I'm making is that CE, as you know, Bryan, has typically connected the brain of a dental professional to their state requirements, right? And it's more than that, right? It's anything that you can learn, as you know, in order to become a better professional. Yes, there's the basics of the requirements that the states are required for your license, but we want to be better than that, right? And I know a lot of your listeners, as you mentioned, take hundreds of hours of CE, even in a given year, of all these different things. And so, just because I tune in to something, for example, you guys are doing, and maybe what I learned there is not against my requirements for my state, does not mean that that's not going to help somebody become a better dentist. And so I think that's what's exciting about this new online world, is just the abundance of knowledge out there that I'm sure yourself and a lot of colleagues that started when you did would probably give anything to have had a lot of the knowledge that's out there now in your career. And I think that's what's exciting about it.
Yeah. And I think that I totally agree. And I think one thing that's missing, though, today, from my perspective, that I'm trying to help correct on the providers of continuing education side through Upgrade, is that as the people that you mentioned, Spear, Gordon Christensen, these people were, because there wasn't the noise of all the other, it was directionally like, I knew if I went there, I was going to learn the latest and greatest, right? And that kind of thing. And they're still around, they're still doing great things, but not necessarily the latest and greatest, because that is becoming even more narrow, more specified. Yes. And I think what's happened is that a lot of the CE space, a lot of the people who speak are speaking about little little hypocritical for me to be saying this, but like, talk about so many different things that they don't necessarily have the expertise in those things.
Right.
Right. And so like, for example, to bring it back to me, of course, but I mean, to upgrade, we're focused on, growing your practice. We have a focus on technology because I think that's a huge way to grow your practice today. But staying away from a lot of the other stuff that like Frank Spear would talk about with like worn dentition or all sorts
Yeah.
of great things that he works on, right? And so I think that there's going to be even more specified, higher value, directionally focused educational platforms that are propping up. That's that,
Yeah.
and to your point, I think that's a very good thing. And I want to restate what you said in probably less articulate terms, but the value of CE isn't keeping your license up. If that's the way you look at CE, you're looking at it wrong, right? I had one of the instructors in dental school tell me, all of you are, in dental school and are just talking to our class, top few in your class right now are not going to be the most successful dentists. The ones that are going to be the most successful are the ones that look at the dental education. When you get your degree, that's the beginning. That's when your education starts, right?
Right.
And I remember thinking, as like the person that you could pin as the median of the class, remember, like right in the middle, right? I was like, all right, I might not be as fast as these guys, but I'll run longer and farther eventually, right?
Right.
So I've definitely dove myself into CE for hundreds of hours, and so couldn't agree more with what you said. And like you also stated, I want to thank the audience because we are looking to increase the influence of engaged dentists, and those engaged dentists already understand that, right?
Yes.
So I think they're speaking our language, and I definitely want to thank you, John, for being on the podcast and for all the great work you're doing to elevate the profession. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thanks a lot. This has been awesome, and especially just having a conversation about something that you mentioned that both of us are very passionate about, and I hope that everybody watching enjoyed that. And I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Bryan.
Absolutely. So if people want to find out more, both of all the things of C Exchange,
So
ACE, of JRS4, where should they go?
yes, so super easy. So the first is dentalace.org. So very easy, dentalace.org. That's the platform that the American Association of Dental Boards has put together for the accreditation. So, for those that want to get accreditation, the process is there. Even for the dentists themselves, just want to kind of learn about it, especially if they find themselves in a situation where they start taking courses that are ACE accredited. So that's dentalace.org. And then Dental Cast Productions, which is a part of JRS4 Media. That's my media company. That's dentalcastproductions.com. So that's where I get to do fun things like you do and talk to people and, hopefully continue to showcase the profession that we love.
Well, thanks, John, and look forward to talking to you sometime soon. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Bryan.